Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of our pile driver build from Finescale Miniatures. This is a real fun build. I'm having a ton of fun building it. So today we're going to be building the structure, the shack on the barge. I guess you could call it the hoist house. We cover a lot of techniques in today's show, so please just stay tuned and check things out. And maybe we'll actually get a question out at the end of the episode if I don't forget this time. So the walls are made out of basswood, and we're going to be using this thumbtack, the number 11 razor blade, a pair of tweezers. I'm sure this little tool is going to be used for something that looks cool. And my wire brush. Like I said before, our walls are made out of basswood. It looks to be scribed. Previously off camera, I already did this wall. Did all the framing in the back, as you can see. So the first step to getting this wall looking realistic will be to put some board ends onto it using my number 11 razor blade. I'm only putting the board ends where the planks span the whole wall. And of course, where those board ends are, we need to use our thumbtack to put in some nice nail holes. I use a thumbtack specifically because the end point is round, and sometimes you don't find it to be round in other tools. I find a Ponce wheel to be unrealistic because the spacing is wrong. For all kinds of reasons, Ponce wheels just won't work for me in this situation. So I put nail holes at the edges of the boards, at the ends of the walls, around the windows, not on the top and the bottom, but just on the sides, around the door, and at the board ends in the middle of the wall. And this structure is going to be in some bad shape. The wood on the walls, it wasn't really pulled from the finest of woods, so we're going to add some grain to the wood with a razor blade. Just lightly scribing lines in the correct direction. Don't worry about it being straight. The grain in the wood is never straight, so you shouldn't be either. So along with this heavily aged grained wood, we're gonna need some knot holes, and this number 7 blade is the perfect size for knot holes in my opinion. So we're just gonna squirrel in a couple of knot holes, and don't worry about the wood shavings that come out of the hole. They'll be taken care of when we pull out our wire brush and start hitting the wall with it. So now that we've marked up this wood in some extreme ways that you'd never think would look good in any way possible, we're going to tone it all down. We're going to cut the top edges off of all of our sharp razor blade cut grooves with our wire brush. Now the wire brush is going to make everything look the same level. It's just going to make the wall look more uniform, so that one side of the wall doesn't look more dirty than or not aged than the other side, kind of things like that. So with a firm hand, use your soft wire brush like this brass bristle brush, and just hit the whole wall. Make sure that you have your fingers down on the wall, because The wall is unprotected. There's nothing gluing it together at this point, and it could break in a second. You will pull your hair out if you break the wall at this point. Believe me, I've done it. So of course we're going to be adding some paint and a lot of moisture to this wall, which will warp it way out of whack. So we need to brace the inside. And in Finescale miniatures, they don't like to use a great big square stock of wood to brace a wall when it's possible that the viewer's going to look at the inside. So we actually get the materials to frame this inner wall with some wood that actually looks like it's prototypical in size, which is different. So on my first wall that you see over to the side, I built the framing on the template, the paper template that you see on my table. However, getting the framing off of the template kind of broke all the pieces. Like you have to glue your parts to the paper and then cut them off. And I've never really got this right. I know there's people out there that can do it, but I'm not one of them, it seems. So what I do is I just use the template as a guide, and I add in the wood where I think it should be. I spent 15 years of my life as a carpenter, so I'm pretty sure I can figure out where the wood goes. So now that the wall has been aged with our knives, the framing has been glued onto the back and the glue is cured for a few hours. It's time to start adding some color to this wall. And I'm doing it a kind of different way. Usually in my videos I tell you to start with the shadow and work yourself on up. But I'm kind of following the painting instructions from the kit instructions. Easy for me to say, I know. So I bought a stain specifically for this project, and it's called Dr. Ben's Depot Buff Weathering Stain. Product number 1068. It's that bottle that you can see on the table was about $6.99 American, which isn't a bad deal when you consider that you get the perfect color and the perfect consistency for a paint that's gonna stain into the wood and really show up after you add the dark inks after and stuff like that. You'll see how it turns out. Don't lose faith in me yet. So I'm just gonna paint all these parts and let them dry or cure overnight. I don't want moisture to be a problem in this build, and when you're working with wood, you always got to keep your mind on how much moisture you're adding to this wood, because it's so dry and soft and supple that it's just gonna soak this stuff in, become huge and big and nasty. So now that our wood stain has been drying overnight and cured, I'm going to be using my extra thick weathering Indian ink and alcohol. I make this super strong, so you're going to notice right away how much color is getting into this wood. There's going to be no mistaking that I've added weathering to this wood. So Like I said before, we cured our glue and paint and everything set to move on to the weathering stage. So remember, this is just pre-weathering. This is the stuff that we add to the wall before the walls are put together. The main structure is going to get its weathering when it's put together on the model, because we want to see how everything sits, and we want the weathering to look like it was created by, well, weather. I painted the windows and doors a variation of rust color. I think it's terracotta, a little bit more reddy than orangey in terms of rust color. So these are metal windows, and I don't expect them to fit nicely into the wood walls. So before I add any glass, I'm just gonna test fit all the windows into the wall and then glue them in place. Oh yeah, and as always, let the glue dry completely at this stage. After the glue's dried, I'm going to add my glazings that I cut to the size of the window. All I do is, I tried something new this time to glue my windows on. I usually use Future floor wax because it gives a nice shiny finish to the windows. However, this time I used my watered down matte medium on the windows because I didn't want to have so much of a sheen on the window. One of the biggest mistakes you could ever make when adding glazings is to glue it in using CA Crazy Glue. It'll add a white haze to your acetate or whatever window you're using and make a real mess of it. It's a technique that could be used to benefit you in many situations, just not this one. Now that the windows are done and installed, we can start thinking about assembling the building itself for the barge. First we have to add the corner posts, which are a square stock supplied with the kit. I painted them rust color again so that they will contrast nicely with our depot buff. Once you put the square stock on the corner, it's real easy to glue the corners together. And I just put the building on the corner of my workbench here, which is has a legit 90-degree corner, so that I know that two of my walls are 90 degrees, which should make all the rest of the walls 90 degrees as well. I know that doesn't always work, but this is a model. It's not meant to be perfect. While the walls are drying, I'm gonna build the big barn door for the front of the shack where the hoist is. We're just gonna, it comes with two scribed pieces. I'm gonna glue them back to back, put a weight on them, let it dry, and move on. Okay, I use a clamp. So after the door dried, I stained the door with our stain using a piece of Kleenex. I don't really like using Kleenex. I don't see no benefit of using it, but it said to do it in the instructions, and I figured I'd try it. You know, you can't really teach people how to do things without trying it the wrong way too. It's not like it's the wrong way either, it's just how much different can it be from a brush? I just don't understand. So anyways, paint it, sit it under a weight. Also, another thing you may have noticed, I didn't really weather the door. And there's a simple reason why I do that. I want some of my pieces to stand out because of their the weathering on them. And this door, I don't really want to stand out. I just want it to sit in the scene and not really look so important. So it's put together real nice. It could have been put together in the last few years, you know. Constant maintenance. Also in the kit came with some cardstock frames for the door to you know, to put the X on the door. Now I got lots of wood sitting around here, and I figured I might as well paint up some wood and put that on so it doesn't look shoddy. Paper looks real good. You'll never notice the difference, but you know, if you got it around, use it. I mean in the wood, not the cardstock. Come on, follow me here, guys. So now that all our parts are dried and all that jazz, it's time to get the shack on the deck, so to speak. So after a few days of allowing the stain to kick into the barge, I hit it again with the wire brush a few times to it took the brown out of the wood and added a real dark tone to it. I also added a couple of coats of weathering solution to the top of it too. Using the paper plans, I'm sizing up where the shack should go. This isn't really a science. There's no measurements. They just give you a picture that says it should go somewhere around here. So that's what I did. I think I put it a little bit too far forward. I don't know. It looks great to me. But anyways. To glue this structure down, I added glue to the four corners. I just added a nice patch of glue in the corners and let it dry. My weld bond glue dries perfectly clear, so you'll never see any glue even if you're looking inside. And I take my MIG wash, the black wash, and paint over the glue anyways after it dries, and then it just looks like a black blob on the ground. Could be a pile of coal, could be anything really. Using a toothpick, I measure each corner of the shack to make sure it's in the center. I want all the distances on the walkways to be generally the same. As you can see here, I'm adding my glue to the corners, and it's not science, guys. Just, you know, make sure if you're adding glue, nobody's gonna see it. Put it where nobody's gonna see it, and in these back corners, nobody's gonna see it. And in the front, I'm gonna put a little bit less glue into the front corners and kind of shove it up into the side so that when it dries, you won't be able to see it even if you're trying to look in there. Anyways, guys, that's another episode in the can. So I hope you like how this series on the Finescale Miniatures Pile Driver Kit is coming along. If you like the series, please add a like or comment below. And if you like my videos in general, please subscribe. It's a great joy to see my subscribers going up. Also, the question for today, what is it? What is it that you do to de-stress? I know some of you are going to say I go down to the train room to de-stress, but this is kind of like my business. Over the years, my favorite way to de-stress is to play a video game, which is something I'm doing in my latest video series with my son Dylan. So I guess this is goodbye.
And have a nice day.